Welcome to Total Money Management. We're back, the three of us. Three Australians.
Boongo, there you go.
We're here. Well, I'm half and half.
You're an Aussie. There you go, mate. Actually, have we
cheers.
had a cheers to that? I think
Well, I
Tom
don't
and I
think-
did it for last week for you. In,
Chin chin. No, you did. I watched it and I appreciated it. And I was also going to comment on how swiftly Tom wanted to move on to the topics without having a chat with you, Steve.
Mate, he doesn't linger. He doesn't linger, this boy.
Keeps it to 25 minutes.
What did Grant Cardone say? What was that?
Oh, white space is the devil in the calendar.
Have you got
Stay busy, mate.
You got
So
no
stay
space.
on track.
It gets to 6:31 and Tom's out the door, ready to get
Yep.
to bath time.
To my next one.
He's on to the next one.
Oh, it's good to be back, gents. Like this week, we're covering up to September. What are we on? 19. And it'll be released tomorrow. But I mean, I suppose the nutshell is, again, things are crazy. The Cape ratio is up at 40 for the second time since the .com bubble. It was at 44.
For the second time in the US ever.
Ever, yeah.
The highest was 44.
But if what's this way? You adjust it for inflation, it's actually higher, right?
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, when you adjust it for a lot of things, you go, it's actually higher. But, you know.
Yeah. Well, we can't really
pick your ratio.
We can't really repeat what we were saying before we press record, but basically it's effed, and
we're all going to die.
We need to come up with a strategy to kind of get through the next few
Cash.
years,
Steve's words were, "This is going to be dangerous."
Yes. Yeah. I
and then he
think I
put
used
some
something
sunglasses
else,
on.
Yeah. Look, I'm serious. In all seriousness, I don't know what it is this week. It might have been, I missed breakfast or something. But I just thought to myself, oh, man, this is just the stuff going on.
You're getting nihilistic.
The stuff going on
Just
in
blue.
America is just crazy. Donald Trump on the world stage is just...
Did you see his...
Mate, it's just a shit show. Like the stuff he says and the things he's doing, like...
Did you see him with King Charles when he stood
Yes.
up and he said, no one's questioning America's the hottest country in the world right now, and the King of England just sat there like, what are you saying? Like, what's coming out of your mouth? Who's written this?
You can see everybody in the room's just going, oh, good Lord.
There's just a full English banquet, and he stood there just embarrassing him. Hilarious. Go and watch it.
But it's just, anyway. Well, we put a chart there. Price to sales is at 3.2, 2.8, highest it's ever been.
Can you explain price to sales?
Price to sales is generally the sales or the revenue of the company, right? So the stock price to the revenue value, right? So again, it's sort of like, it's another measure like PE.
Yeah,
Right.
I was going to say, how's that?
Yeah, there's
seven
price to
users.
earnings, price to sales, price to book ratio, the asset value.
Yeah.
So there's various ones that you can use. The interesting thing there is when every ratio I look at now is double the long-term average and a little bit more. So Cape 17, now it's 40, right? Double 17, 34 and a little bit. The sales ratio is 1.6. It's now 3.2. Well, that's a double.
Yeah.
Right? Everything I'm looking at now...
So essentially, before we move on, it's how much investors are willing to pay for every dollar of sales.
Yes.
So if there's $1 of sales, I as an investor am willing to pay $3 for that $1. So we're speculating on capital gains.
And that's the same. It's just... That's what I mean. This week, I don't know what it was, but there was just stuff that going on in America that I just thought, and, I'd love to be wrong, but it just looks to me as if they've got a civil war coming at possibly the worst time with the tariffs and it just seems like it's just completely chaotic. The countries don't know what they're doing. They're arresting South Koreans who are there on visas. Then Trump says, oh, well, no, we'll bring them back. The South Koreans are going, nah, thanks, we're all going home. So they've got labour shortages. They're kicking the immigrants out. Like it just seems to be totally chaotic. And
And there's all these like political
well,
stunts and things.
I think Trump. Look, I could be wrong. I'm not sure whether they actually make the 2026 midterm elections. because you see Trump, the polling out is showing that Trump's like being smashed. I think he's lost, 20 points or something.
Yeah, he's like minus 20 compared to
right. So in other words, he's not doing really well amongst too many people. And so you wouldn't expect this is going to get better over the next 3 years. The fact is Donald Trump knows when he's losing that he calls the other team, he calls the other side cheats, right, and creates chaos. And in chaos, that's when you can get a dictator that comes in and says, well, I'm sending in the army, blah, blah. And he's already done that.
So he's sending in the army, he's shutting down media channels and TV.
Yeah. This is exactly, I had to say it, this is exactly what Adolf Hitler did, right? This is exactly what Adolf Hitler did. It's the same playbook. So that's why you have to look at it at some stage and say, because like I was saying to you guys, what does it feel like with a cape at 40?
Like to live through a cape of 40.
Well, yeah. So what I'm saying is I've lived through that.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm looking at it going, oh, man, this is really awful. You guys can look at it and go...
Yeah, it's the first time we've been here.
Yeah. Well, Steve said the cape at 40 is really awful, but you haven't gone, man, I know what he's talking about.
Well, last time we were 6.
Yeah.
In 2000.
Hadn't you started investing by 6?
Only a few million.
On my way.
So... And so, and then the other thing is too, the thing I looked at and went, Bitcoin's back near all-time high. Gold is near all-time high. Bonds are killing it. Stocks are killing it. That's when you look at it. See, generally what you're doing is saying, well, if stocks are expensive, gold should be cheap, right? Or bonds should be cheap, right? But at the moment, everything's expensive. So you have to say, well, hang on, how does that work?
I was theorizing the other day when so much of the S&P right now is retail investors, right?
Yes, yeah.
How much of the institutional investors, and I don't think any of us here know, have moved into gold? Like, is it the institutions that are moving to gold?
No, it's the country. Well, apparently the story is that it's central banks moving into gold.
Right.
And I think one of the arguments, which I think sounds fairly plausible, is what they're doing is they're moving out of the US dollar, but they have to buy some sort of asset that doesn't affect their currency. Right? It's it's not that complicated, but essentially what they're doing is Japan and Europe and China, instead of exchanging US dollars into their own currency, what they do is they just continue to use the US dollar to buy assets. Therefore, they don't raise their own currency. They don't become anti-competitive. So therefore, they don't have an unemployment issue. So I think what they're doing is they're buying gold as a way to exchange the currency, but not create problems in their own domestic markets. Right. And that's why I think, this is, like I say, this is why I keep looking at it going, hang on, why is everything going up?
Yeah, but that's what I mean. How are equities still?
Well, part of it is the US government is spending a lot of money.
But how long can the show go on though? If everything keeps going up?
Well, it stops, Tom, but I just can't tell you when.
But if every market's going up, then people can just move it around.
Well, no.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes and no, but,
like chess.
No, the old idea was that you would rush out of stocks and into gold.
Yes.
Right?
Or bonds.
Yeah. But if you look at gold and go, oh, Jesus, hang on, gold's at all-time highs. Now, gold could go a lot higher. Right? Or Bitcoin. Bitcoin could go to 200 because there's no value. So it's not as if you can look at gold and Bitcoin and go, oh, it's worth, gold is worth, because again, like I said, it doesn't pay any earnings. So there's no way you can anchor the price to say, oh, yes, it's,
Yeah, this is what it's worth.
This is what it's worth, like a property with, oh, here's the rent, here's how much you paid, oh, that's the yield.
Yeah, right.
Or with a stock, right? So that's why I keep looking at it going, I can't figure it out, because if you're buying stocks and gold and Bitcoin, then you're using a lot of dollars, right? Currency.
Yeah.
Well, that currency has got to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Refinance the house that you're
Yes.
up 200% on in the last 4 years.
Yes, that's true. That's true. But again, the money that money that would see an increase in bank lending, right? So there's only two ways to get money into the economy. The one is government spending, right, which floods I shouldn't say flood. The government says we're going to build a bridge for $1 billion, so they create $1 billion and spend it, right? That puts money into the private sector. The private sector goes, cool, I'm going to go and buy a cement factory or something, right? That's one way. The other way is banks lend to people, okay? Bank create money, okay? And that's done generally with property, or they lend to business, right? Because business says, hey, Tom's booming and he wants more of my cement. I'm going to, extend my cement factory. And you see that in loans, which is increasing margin loans.
What about if they increase taxes and use that money to build a bridge?
Well, no. Well, they can do that, Jacob. But you see,
it's the same circulating cash.
If you increase taxes, what you're doing is taking money out of the economy.
Yeah.
So that makes it worse. So the interest rate cut that Jay Powell put in this week, that takes money out of the economy. You see, because they're saying Jacob's got a bond at 5%, so we're paying him 5%, but we're cutting interest rates. Now you're going to get 5%, but the new person who is holding bonds is not going to get 5%. They're going to get 4.75 or whatever it is. In other words, the government are paying out less money. That's why a lot of the smart guys were saying to the government when interest rates were 0, get in there and borrow a ton of money because you're getting it for 0, right? So this is why, and this gets a bit down the rabbit hole, but that's why government spending is really good. And when you look at the correlation between government spending and deficits and the stock market, government spending is great for stocks. Right, because the government's spending money. And that's why that's why I've been complaining about Albanese by saying you guys are not running a deficit. So there's no new money. The only new money in the Australian economy is coming from exports and also bank lending. And banks are lending all the money to people who are speculating on existing property. Right? So in other words, there's no new money creation. Right? If Albo said, listen, we're going to spend 5% of GDP for the next 5 years.
On new businesses, creating jobs.
Well, the critical mineral strategy, right? We're going to spend $1 billion. Well, they just create that, right? But now the critical minerals industry goes, hey, this is great. We better we better open that mine. Oh, all right. Well, what do we got to do? Well, listen, go to the bank, tell them what's going on, and the bank will lend to us so we can get Tom the engineer in there. And listen, we'll have to get some tractors and, we need some jobs, all this sort of stuff. So that's how you create economic growth, right? And what I think is happening, sorry, I know I'm ranting a bit, but what I think, it seems to me that everybody is speculating. It just seems to me that what's happened in the Western economies in the last 30-odd years is we've all become enamored with how do I make money without doing anything, right? So I'll just buy Bitcoin, right? What do you do for Bitcoin? Nothing. I just sit there and wait for it to go up. And it's like, oh, okay. I'll just buy a property. And what do you do then? Nothing. I'll just sit there and wait for it to go up. I don't have to do any work, right? Oh, do you think you should build a factory, start a business? Oh, no, that's too risky. I'll just buy Bitcoin. And it's like, oh, okay. Or stocks. And you see, that's what's going on. Everybody is looking away. Everyone's looking for a way to make money without doing, in the previous generation was the hard yards.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's my observation.
This is what's happening.
Yeah. Is that everybody, and then I think I said last week with you, Tom, my observation is that young people are not shitty about living. What they're shitty about is they think property's an easy ticket to money. And so therefore what they're doing is saying, oh, well, the boomers are making all the money. But if property falls 20, 30, 40%, I don't think you're going to hear too many young people going, oh, cool, now I'm going to get into it.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I guess my view is it'd be easier to get in. Like with that,
look,
shitty about getting into the market is
yeah.
But if you're in and you want 5 properties, then go screw yourself. But people just trying to get in.
Yeah, but I think the other, and look, I'm happy to be wrong, and I'm just clutching at straws. I think there's a lot of yeah, because if I buy it when it's cheap, I'm going to make money over the next 20 years.
Yeah.
And that's like I said to you guys might be unlucky where you get in and then property goes nowhere for 20 years.
Sounds, yeah. I mean, it'd match the last 30 years of luck, to be honest.
Well,
Other than Bitcoin, that's
yeah,
pretty well.
Yeah. But, that's why I say it just seems to me like the whole bloody thing's turned into a casino. It just
all
seems,
the things.
that's what I mean, Tom. It's not like you can say, other than energy, which we've been talking about, everything else looks like it's just batshit crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I am sitting and waiting for oil to do something. I'm like poking it with a stick.
Well,
Come on, Woodside, you you do something better than
well,
losing 5%.
It went down 4% on Wednesday, I think.
I saw that.
Yeah, it did do something.
I went to the bloody service station. If I'm having a rant, I'm going to have a good one. The bloody service station on Monday, I thought, I need to fill up the car, right? Ding, ding, yellow. And it's $1.66 or $1.69, right? And I thought, I'll fill it up tomorrow. Anyway.
$2.11.
As if you're growling at that.
$2.
Like double that.
$2.19.
Yeah.
But that's bullshit, mate. That's a 50-cent rise. That's 25%
In a day.
Yeah. That's bullshit.
And we're the only country
and
that
the
does
oil
that.
price is at 63.
Yeah. We're the only country that does that. You go to the UK and it might move a pence.
I don't know how governments have let the companies do that. Stephen Miles, the Labor candidate, the premier, said, we'll stop that. But he didn't get elected.
I don't know how. Yeah, I don't actually understand how they are allowed to do that. It's price gouging through.
Well, there's
nose.
no law that says they can't do it, Jacob. Right? That's the problem. When you get companies together that basically wink and nod and say, hey, listen, let's all put it up to $2.15, right? If they all put it up, what are you going to do? Well, you can't say, well, stuff them. I'll just wait here and run out of fuel.
Price of oil is going down as well.
Yeah, I can see the cogs turning. You want to get a servo and put it at 5.
You want to buy a servo?
Yeah.
DMM servo.
They must be just like bloody... Anyway, I'm rabbiting
All right,
on.
What's next?
Rabbiting on.
Keep on track.
Well, the rest of the economies are much the same. UK is in a bit of strife. France, Macron stepped back. Have you been following this? Macron stepped back into like a presidential role only, and there's a new prime minister.
Yeah,
I actually found this out for the first time. There's a president and a prime minister. In France.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, they're sort of a lot. Well, the way they work is a little bit different.
Yeah, one's head of government, the other one's head of state.
Yes, yeah. So it's a little bit more like the US. There's a president, and then there's sort of Congress.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, I just
but
thought
the
I'd
big,
throw that in
the big. This is how stupid the world is, right? President Macron and his wife Bridget are suing Candace Owens, the US right-wing shock jock, because she said Bridget's a man.
I was waiting for that.
Sorry, mate. I just saw it today, and it's like they're suing her to say, Bridget's not a man. And I just thought, the president of France is, suing some 2-bit shock jock in America. I mean, God, Jesus, that's what I mean. I must be old. I just keep looking at it going, oh, man, please get me off the planet.
Oh, what's happening in Australia? So the Aussie economy want to watch. Unemployment rates are starting to rise. Are they starting to rise?
Or no, but if they do, it may well impact property.
Yeah, it just the reason why it looked a little bit better was because the participation rate fell. So instead of being 4.2, it should be about 4.4.
Yeah,
which is, look, monthly data is a bit like, big deal, but overall, again, as I've said, I don't think you can look at employment as a great indicator because so many people are Uber driving. They've got 3 jobs, So, and generally with underemployment, it's about 10%.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the sort of that's why I say we're not booming here. Right. Our economic growth is like 1.8. I mean, that's inflation's at 2.5. So in other words, we're going backwards.
Yeah, and then all the while properties
and petrol's $2.12.
And Doritos are how much?
Oh Jesus, can't
Don't get him
afford them.
started on chocolate.
I've
Doritos.
had to stop. I've had to. They're too
I
expensive.
thought you lost a bit of weight.
That's why I'm grumpy. There's no Doritos in the household. What the hell's going on?
But in Canada, since 2020, we posted this on Instagram, so if you don't follow us, go and have a follow. But Canadian house price index has dropped in some cases up to 30 or 40%.
Yeah.
And especially somewhere like Kitchener, London, places like that. And
Over what period?
From 22.
Huh.
Yeah.
So, that's put it this way. You imagine saying to Australians, property prices are going to fall 30 or 40%. There'd be a lot of people going, uh-oh.
And you can, in 2021, Canadians that have been like, we're geniuses.
Well, it's the same thing that happened here.
Yeah.
We had COVID, and what happened? Everybody went in and borrowed money to buy a property.
Yeah, so London down close to 40% as well.
In Canada, yeah. London, London.
Yeah, right.
But the US is now starting to fall too, the US property market.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I talked a little bit about that last week, the shenanigans going on there. And I think that's what's happened. The last couple of weeks I've been researching two things: the American property market, because it's always a bit of a canary in the coal mine.
Yeah.
And the other one was residential mortgage-backed securities. And I think looking at both of those made me realise, and I think I might have said this a while ago, but what's happened now is basically it seems to me that people are willing to lie through their teeth to get the money they need to which they think will make them rich. So American investors in property, to give you an idea, the Philadelphia Fed did a study in 2019, right? And they said, listen, you guys, there is mortgage fraud going on all over the place. And they said it's mainly investors, right? Now, they worked out it was something around 30 to 40% of investors were doing mortgage fraud so they could buy the investment property, right? Because they saw that as the rags to riches.
Well, what were they doing? Like falsifying income, or were they?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. The main one, Tom, was there's this they call it a workout, right? So you've got a property and it's your principal place of residence.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to go and buy an investment property, and the bank says, yeah, righto, Tom. Look, it won't be 5, it'll be 7, right? So it's a higher repayment. Okay, so you go in and you say to the bank, yeah, it's going to be my PPR, right?
Oh yeah, we spoke about this last.
Yeah, right. So then what happens is they had this program for people who were struggling to repay their loans, right? And what they did was they said, oh, all right, look, Tom, if you're having trouble, we'll take the payments that you should have made, we'll put them at the back and not charge you interest, right? Because you're struggling. But listen, we'll do that for 3 or 6 months. What happened was Biden said, oh man, there's an election coming. So they went, okay, Tom, just keep rolling it over, right? Because they knew that there was a shit sandwich coming. So what happened was people the mortgage buyers, all these people are incentivized to say, hey, listen, Tom, just go and buy a property. Nah, mate, tell them you're going to move in, and then don't move in and rent it out, right?
So
and then you go in and say to them, oh, listen, I can't afford it, right? And they go, oh, right, we'll put you at the back of the loan. For 18 months, you're not paying a mortgage payment. You're getting rent, and then at some point you go, now I'm going to flip it.
You write off the debt against the rent.
This is what they were trying to get Lisa Cook on, right? The Federal Reserve. She said it was a vacation home. But again, what happened then was, because I said this is what Lisa Cook's doing, the mortgage fraud, right? And it turns out bloody Scott Bessent's doing it as well. Like, this is why I say the problem is everybody's doing it. And the more the rich skirt the system, the more the poorer people or the middle class say, well, if they can do it, I'm going to do it.
That is insane.
And that's what's going on. Right?
Where's that? Where'd you read that? I want to read it.
Where's that, sorry?
Where did you see that article?
I can send you the Philly report.
Yeah, we'll stick it on Instagram.
Yeah. Look, as I said to you, that's why in all honesty, I'm looking at it going, oh, Jesus, the thing's just turned into a lawless casino, you know, because people are just, they're you know, the institutions, the public institutions are so degraded that it is just simply impossible for government regulators to monitor everybody, right? So it's equivalent to saying, oh, we're in New York and there's 100 police.
It's
and
like
it's like,
whack-a-mole,
dude,
isn't it?
everybody, you know.
It's whack-a-mole.
Well, it's not. Yeah, it's in a
joke.
sense, Jacob. Yeah, but the problem is, what they're doing is saying, well, we'll just go for the easy stuff.
Yeah.
You know, they can't go for the complex crime because it takes up too much of their time. And they go to court and the court sides with the bloody criminals.
Yeah.
Right? Well, Clarence Thomas, the Supreme Court of America, Clarence Thomas, you know, you find out he's getting millions of dollars in bloody trips and all sorts of stuff, right?
Back payments.
But they're already paid $1 million a year. You know, like this is where you look at it and go, oh man, no wonder you look at it and go, someone's going to get really angry. And that's what's happening at the moment. When you look on social media, everyone's like really aggro.
The quote unquote normal people are sick of the high powers. Anyway,
Well, you can't see a way out of it.
no. Well, they've been and then they pitch right against left, and it's actually just
Yes.
all a big distraction. But we won't go into that. Tom, what is the lesson of the week?
Lesson of the week, just a reminder that when valuations are high, we can spend a long time going nowhere at market extremes.
Yeah, and like my question is, and no one knows, are we going to have a big pop, or are we going to have stagflation
Or a fizzle down.
for 30 years, and we're all going to be 60 by the... Well, Steve's not going to be 60, but we're going to be 60 by the time it ends.
Thanks for that. So you're going to say I'll be dead?
No,
Is that what-
you might be in palliative care or something.
for a couple of days.
Whoa. Here we go.
It's the wine.
But yes, yeah. The worst thing about markets is the unpredictability, right?
Yeah.
But this is why I say at a cape of 40, I don't know whether it takes 5 years or whether it takes 12 months or whether it happens next week. All I'm saying is it's not going to stay at 40. Now, as you said earlier, Tom, it could go to 50. But
We're taking bets on 50.
what we know is the higher it goes, the worse the end result. Look at Japan. Japan's cape got to 100. That's why it spent 30 years going nowhere.
That's insane.
I know.
He got to 100. Okay.
Yep.
So, yeah, we might get to
We could
100.
Mate, honestly, you look back, you go and read
Maybe
a
I've
little
got
bit.
too much cash. Maybe I'm holding too much cash now.
Mate,
If
they
we're
had-
going to get to 100,
They were doing dumb shit like putting
Redeploy.
gold dust on food, right? Like it was, you know, one of the Japanese people, the
killing
rich
it.
guy, one of the rich Japanese guys said he was going to buy, I think it was a Picasso painting, right, worth lots of money, and then he was going to steamroller it and bury it. Right? And everybody just went, WTF, right? And like there was all this stuff, they bought golf course memberships were like, $50,000, $100,000, right? They were just completely awash with money. It was just unbelievable.
And it popped.
then yeah, there you go.
But they went nowhere for 30 years. They've only just started to do all right again now.
Yes.
Oh, they fell and stayed cheap.
1990, exactly, Tom.
But did they pop and go cheap, or did they slowly come down?
No, it was basically it basically blew up in a short space of time.
Right. Okay.
And then it just stayed because there's two ways to deal with debt. You can either say, righto, that's it, we've all wiped out, right, cool, let's start again, right? Which is a little bit like the American style. Asian styles are more like, okay, we're just going to grind it out for 20 years. But Japan was so horrendously asset bubbled that if they said, well, we'll just let the cards fall, it would have been cataclysmic. And that's what I'm concerned about in America, right? It's a little bit like saying, and we were talking about this before, right? 87, and then we had the 25% drop in a day. Then it recovered. Then we had the Russian default and the fall of the Berlin Wall. That was 91. Then we got into the Asian financial crisis in 97. Then we had the dot-com, right? Then we had the GFC. So all of these things have sort of ratcheted down the market. And it's a little bit, in my mind, it's a little, the concern I have for the next blow up is that it's the lowest point. So in other words, the damage is enormous.
Or if it's coupled with, dare I say it, some huge war or disagreement or some economic...
There'll be inevitably...
Absolutely.
There'll be a black swan.
That's what draws it.
You know, there will, like, Nassim Taleb stuff.
Yes.
There'll be a black swan.
Absolutely.
That seems to often happen at extremes.
Yep. Exactly.
But that'll be the reason. It won't be that it was expensive.
No, it'll just be, you know, as I said, civil war might start out and they start burning factories. Yeah. That's what I mean. You can't, it'll be something where we go, oh man, I didn't think that'd be an issue.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is if that's not the case and it's just another GFC that pops and then a couple of years later we're on our merry way again, like something needs to hold it down if it's going to stay down for that long.
Yes, that's true. And the problem will be, the problem will be that what happened in the GFC was the private sector blew up with the housing bubble. Right?
Yeah.
So the government stepped in and said, all right, we'll give you, I think it was 800 billion, right? Which these days is a bit like chicken feed. But they stepped in, they stabilised it, and then the government deficits started going up, right? Well, the problem we got at the moment is the US government deficit is now already running at 6 to 7% of GDP. So in other words, the US have got huge debt already. Yeah. So the argument is, well, can't be the government that bails us out. Well, industry won't bail them out because industry's going, well, what, you want me to build something for no demand? Yeah, nah, right.
But could other countries bail them out? They're already in debt to the
no,
US
because
anyway.
the other countries all got dragged down in the GFC as well because everybody's coalesced around America. Yeah. Right? And that's why the Mag 7 is, the Mag 7 are enormous because what's happening, and people are just buying everything in the US. Yeah. They're ignoring, there's great value in emerging markets in Europe, but nobody wants to be there, right? Because you see, that's why everybody's relying on the United States. This is why we keep getting the boom and bust scenario. Yeah. See, the rules hasn't changed, Jacob. No. So, and I said this 10 years ago, if you don't change the rules, you're going to get the same outcome. Yeah. And that's exactly where we are, right? We've now got housing bubbles. We now got stock bubbles, exactly like we had before.
Yeah.
Right? Why? Because they haven't changed the system. And that's why Trump is trying to change it.
In his wonderful way.
In his own way, which, maybe some of us don't see the benefit in it. But I give him his due for at least saying this has got to stop. Yeah. Everyone can't just keep taking the mickey out of the US. And it's true. That's why they're all complaining. Oh, my God, this is terrible. And it's like, yeah, okay, well, you've had a good ride for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And Trump said, 5% of GDP on spending, on war, and they all went, we can't do that. Well, guess what?
Yeah, watch me.
They're doing it.
They're starting
right?
to
So
do
the
it.
Germans have gone, hell, we can't rely on America. We better start building our own bullets and bombs.
Yeah.
Right? Australia, right? We're building our own missiles, our own submarines. And I think last week we made $1 billion announcement for submarine drones. Right? This is why I say this is getting to the pointy end. We've stopped the idea of being friends, anymore. There's, Chinese have said we're not sending you any germanium, right? Which is a critical earth for bullets.
That's not a real thing.
Yeah,
that's not a real thing.
It is, I'm telling you, righto. But my point being, that's what they're doing. See, they're saying, well, we've got a lock on this. We're not going to send it to you.
Yeah.
Well,
aren't critical minerals and rare earths also booming?
Oh,
yes.
I haven't looked.
Yes.
Should we do a special on it?
Well, we talked about it in the coaching call, and since then they've doubled.
Have they?
Yeah, not advice. Yes, well, yeah. I won't go into it, but yes, the ones we talked about have gone
gangbusters,
nuts.
Wait until we get a license, and then we can.
Well, that's
start
why.
talking
That's
about
why I say, if you understand how strategic these things are, that's why the countries are going. We're in big trouble,
Yeah.
right? Because they can't do it. We've all been sitting there just going, oh yeah, Chinese have got it. Right now the game's changed, and we're all going.
How are we going to do this without them?
Well,
if they decide to turn the tap off,
Tom, that's 100%. That's why I said to you, the concern I have is China has so hollowed out American manufacturing to the point that the Americans can basically do bugger all without the Chinese. I mean, you couldn't dream of this, to have that strategic capability, right, over your greatest rival. And yet that was because the Western societies went, you can get it really cheap in China. And the argument was, well, if China gets rich, they'll become capitalists, right? And it's like, nah. Anyway.
All right. Well, that was a good one. I enjoyed that.
I think I've raved enough, haven't I?
I missed having a yarn last week. So
a couple of shout-outs.
Yeah, go on.
Shout-out, Leo. Sorry, mate. Broncos got home by a point.
That was a good game, wasn't it?
Well, I must admit, Leo, just go and watch the 23 grand final, right? Because the Broncos were in the lead for 60 minutes and then we crashed. And that was what happened to the Raiders on the weekend. And the other shout-out is to Tess.
Tess is good.
Tess wrote something about she loves the podcast. I think she said Steve's unbelievably handsome or something.
She said something like that. Steve's amazing. Honestly, my favourite. Love the insights you all bring. Thank you, Tess.
Yes, thank you, Tess.
And for anyone else who loves us, leave us a review. And
there's always a catch. There's always a catch.
No, we've. I was saying to the boys before, we moved to a new format for our week which is what we read from and what we produce every week and send out on a Saturday. If you haven't moved or you would like to be part of the newsletter, it's free. Head to the website, just leave your email, and that way you can see what we're looking at and what we're reporting on every week.
And what Steve's raving about.
And please subscribe to the blog because Steve puts effort in every week.
Yes, and I put one this week and it had about 35 words.
No one reads it.
I added to it.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, did you?
I did.
Oh, you dirty dog.
I looked at it and thought, that's not enough.
Oh.
And 35 views.
I'm disgusted.
All right. Thanks, gents.
Cheers, folks.
This podcast does not provide financial advice.